everyone. It's been a long time since I see you, so I'm sure you all miss me a lot. I have someone very special to be your host for the next panel. So I want to hear a very warm welcome to Sam from Ristic Studies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to MagicCon Amsterdam. I hope you're feeling great. Today we are looking at Assassin's Creed. This is a rooftop-down exploration of the set, and as I love doing, we're peeking back behind the curtain to see how all of these pieces come together, from world building to art direction to narrative design, and especially because we have a very special guest from Ubisoft to understand how the partnership worked on their side of the aisle. So, without further ado, please welcome to the stage my wonderful group of panelists. I can't wait to get into this. Let's hear it for the panelists.
I did a little dance. Just the smallest of dances.
Okay, so to my left, this is Lauren Bond. She works at Wizards of the Coast. She's a narrative designer. And to Lauren's left, we have Corey Bowen, who is a games designer at Wizards of the Coast. And next we have Stephanie Chung, who is an art director at Wizards of the Coast. And finally, the director of transmedia at Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed. This is Amar Azazia. Please, one more round of applause for my lovely guest.
It's me. I was proud of myself.
Okay, so I'd like to actually start with you, Amar. How did you end up working on Assassin's Creed at Ubisoft?
So the whole thing is thanks for being a geek. That's literally my superpower that allowed everything to happen. So I met a guy in a manga library, and that guy was working for Ubisoft. We had a long conversation that lasted the night, and we talked about Assassin's Creed and how I love the trailer, the game, like the music from Massive Attack, Altair, the Eden Blade, like the whole thing I was geeking about. And a couple of days later, basically Ubisoft called me and offered to have a couple of interviews. I had a job offer for Paris, which I declined. And I was like, no, I really want to work on Assassin's Creed, thank you. I felt like I blew my chances. But a couple of months later, they called and they said, OK, we have a job opening, but it's in Montreal. And I've been living in Montreal for 16 years, so best decision of my life.
Nice, that's lovely. From the Wizard side, like, how did you guys grow up with Assassin's Creed, or?
Yeah, I can jump off. So I started playing the Assassin's Creed game really with AC2. I've been a big fan of them for a long time. I've done a couple of cosplays from the game. I did a Cassandra cosplay and an Evie cosplay. So when the set was announced internally, I was very aggressively asked to be the narrative lead on the set.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing the original trilogy a lot, so, growing up, Assassin's Creed has always been around, and, more recently, I've been playing some of the modern games. I've been at Wizards for, 6 years designing cards, so I was really excited to design a set around Assassin's Creed, such a cool universe.
Yeah, my first time with Assassin's Creed was the first game. I have, this beautiful memory of it. It's just so close to my heart. And so when I first, it's one of the first projects I worked on as a AD on Universes Beyond, and I was just over the moon to get to work on this, one of my favorite game series.
Cool. Amar, so when you were approached, or you were approaching Wizards, what was that conversation looking like? What did you love about the potential to work with Wizards of the Coast from Ubisoft's side?
Well, first, I was like an old Magic player, and I'm laughing because I realized when we talked about that, some of the people working on the team weren't even born. When I started to play Magic, I was playing Arabian Nights, I was playing Legends, yeah. So,
Right.
so the whole thing was, it was a good way to expand beyond what we're usually doing, and that's what I'm doing in transmedia with the movie, TV series, and all of that kind of stuff. So when Magic reached out and we were able to have a conversation, we were super excited to be able to tap in and to allow Assassin's Creed player and fan to discover the game and to have a gateway, and vice versa, to have people playing Magic interested in Assassin's Creed.
And you had a personal experience with some of the other crossovers, correct?
Yeah, because I saw what you did on Warhammer 40K, and when we started having the conversation and everything was under NDA, they just brought up Lord of the Rings. I was like, sold! That was it for me.
Nice. And then from the Wizard side, you're approached by Ubisoft. Obviously, there were fans in the building. What was that side of the aisle looking like?
Yeah, one of the most important parts for us was making a set that appealed to both Assassin's Creed fans and also specifically Magic fans of Assassin's Creed. And so really kind of balancing those two sides. And we had a really small team working on the set, and I think that's part of the success of it. It was mostly us three with a handful of other folks who chipped in the process. And that allowed us to be very focused and very streamlined.
And with the universes beyond, it's also really important. Like, we're very interested in a fresh take. Like, we don't want to just copy and paste IPs into Magic. We want to be conscious about what we include, what we exclude, and what we emphasize in our sets. We wanted the best of both worlds, to see Assassin's Creed through through the lens of Magic: The Gathering. And honestly, we were super lucky working with AMAR and Ubisoft, because references are incredibly important when working on Universes Beyond. And Ubisoft was so supportive in like getting all of our references, getting anything we ever asked for. We even got an early peek into Assassin's Creed Mirage, which was in production at the time.
It's fun kind of being on the the NDA side and getting a peek behind the curtain on the for a game or a universe that
It's a
you
fan
love.
stream. Yeah.
That's the problem, is that you want to talk about it, but you can't. Right? And so, Amar, you know how much history Magic has. Assassins, by now, I mean, I started playing the games in high school. I remember Assassins 1 and 2. I know.
Yeah, I'm old.
Back in the day,
I got
yeah. But both of these games have like a really rich history, both in-world and out-of-world. How do you balance that, and how did you manage that?
Well, that's part of the factors that make the whole collaboration so easy, because whenever you're going to another format, it's the silver screen or you're making a board game, you're kind of trying to find a new language, a grammar, like what your game would be like. And the fact that Assassin's Creed has been like going on for so long, and we've been able to tap into different things, makes us really solid when it comes down to the DNA of the franchise. What are the core things that make whatever we are doing Assassin's Creed relevant? But the fact that Magic has been doing that for so long with other partners made the thing super easy, at least on my level, because the only thing I have to focus on is getting sure that it's, I would say, AC compliant, that it respects our DNA, and I let the team run wild because we trust them. So.
You have to let go of your babies a little bit to pass it on to another company.
Honestly, we had a couple of feedbacks from the team and from art directors. They're like, "You were the best to work with." And I'm like, "We've been through a lot, and we know how it goes, and we want to make your job easy, and we know you're expert at what you're doing. We don't have the pretension of explaining Magic people how to design mechanics, how to pick a color, or what makes a good art for a card. I mean, you know what you're doing. We just want to get sure that you have everything you need in order to do your job."
Mm-hmm. So Amar passes this to you. Corey, you were basically the main game designer here. There's a huge responsibility. He's complimented how working with you is very easy. But on your side, like you don't want to mess it up. Like, tell me a little bit about how you handled the game design side.
Yeah, I mean, this set had such an atypical structure. Everything about this is so different than what we would usually approach a Magic set with. We have a small team. I'm really collaborating a lot closer with Lauren as my creative lead. Usually, my main collaboration focus is maybe a team of 3, 4, or 5 designers. But with this, I'm responsible for a smaller size set, 80 new cards, and really focusing up with Lauren on, how can we make this set feel different? How can we make this set feel really a truly good homage to Assassin's Creed? And it's a Universes Beyond set. It's a smaller booster. It's a more unique booster than we've ever done before. And so we really try to focus in on, let's make an incredibly charming booster. And also following Lord of the Rings, it's a modern legal booster as well, being a Universes Beyond booster. So how do we appeal to a huge Commander audience, a huge modern audience, and most importantly, an audience of Assassin's Creed fans?
The booster pack provides an experience, too. There's an opportunity here to tell a story. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, very early on, we kind of identified this idea, without a core draft experience, a core play experience, what are we optimizing for when we're building these cards? And we're thinking, you know what, this is an 8-card booster pack. Let's get back to Magic's basics. Let's really try to create a story when you open the pack. Optimize for how fun it is to open a pack of cards and see them. And we had this idea, what if you opened a pack and you could see a story of Assassin's Creed? Here's an assassin, here's some action moment. There's their mark, maybe a weapon, a location, just a broad generalization of here is a story you could be telling with this universe. So it's all very different than usual.
And because you're not drafting it, mechanically, you don't have to like kind of adhere to normal Magic draft sets, right?
Yeah, I mean, in draft sets, color balance, right, is a huge example of something very different. Color balance is so important. You want the gameplay to make sense. In this set, because we weren't constrained by that, we had a lot of fun trying to experimenting, figuring out what could we push on without the constraint of draft. Color balance is a huge example of that. There's a lot of uncommons that maybe the effects they do, we wouldn't typically push for a limited format, but here we can make all sorts of cards that don't have to work in that environment.
How did you get feedback within the office to make sure you were hitting this?
This is very, like, okay, most of our sets, the main feedback loop, right, is drafting. It's so much gameplay, so much repetition. That's where all the cards you play. No draft, how are we playtesting cards? Obviously, we're running them through different balance teams, but for the core experience, I'm like, okay, I'll just mock up 30 booster packs. I'll print them out into my packs. Okay, I have 30 booster packs. I'm gonna go around and just say, hey, are you working right now? Hey, Lauren, do you want to open this? Is this
I opened
fun?
a lot of fake packs.
Yeah. Hey, is this fun? Is this card fun? Like when you open this pack, I need you to tell me which cards make you smile and which cards you don't care about. And so it's constantly just like optimizing for opening the booster, like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's this guy, it's that guy, it's this environment, it's that kind of thing. Oh, haha, it's haystack, that kind of stuff.
So you performed R&D on R&D.
Oh,
you got
yeah,
this
yeah.
meta
Yep.
collision happening. Cool. Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to open up one of these booster packs. We're going to look at the 8 cards that are within. And like Corey said, the goal is to feel like we're experiencing an Assassin's Creed type of story. So we chose 8 cards from our booster pack, and every single one has a story behind it, of course. But I guess we could start with the first one on the screen you see here is Eagle Vision. What do you see in this card, Amar? This is kind of like a signature Assassin's Creed, bread and butter type of Magic card.
Definitely, Eagle Vision is part of the DNA of the franchise with free running. That was 2 of the elements that are like core to basically the whole set. And the way it was designed intendedly when we first released Assassin's Creed, the very first game, is we received a mandate from our HQ. And they literally told us that we need to change the game of action-adventure genre, like just that. And the whole premise was, in Assassin's Creed, the first one, whatever you see is part of the playground. If you're looking at a building, you're able to climb on it, to use it at your advantage. So comes the mechanic of climbing everywhere and spotting your target using the Eagle Vision to know who you should strike for. And once you know, you go for the assassination in the middle of everyone. And that was very important. The idea was political. You're sending a message to tyrants saying there's no place to hide. Like the assassin's going to hunt you down, and they'll send a message by killing you. But once it's done, you end up in the middle of the crowd with guards, soldiers, everyone, everywhere around you. So you need to escape. Hence come like parkour and free running, where you're basically using your ability. And once again, the whole environment as a playground in order to escape and to create your own routes. So those 2 mechanics are really what made Assassin's Creed in the first place and needed to be in the set.
Of course. How does an art director depict the free running? When you see that, how do you want to translate that into paintings or art direction for your artist to take away?
Yeah, so from the start, we knew we had to find a way to capture the cinematic action that you experience in the game. Camera angle and perspective are really powerful tools that we leveraged in the set. So in this Ezio piece, we have a low vanishing point and a low angle, low camera pointed upwards towards Ezio creates this sensation of high action. He has his dagger thrown out, his cape flowing behind him. It creates this really powerful momentum to this kill shot that's just about to happen. Alongside this, staging is also incredibly important, right? So in this Mary Read and Anne Bonny piece, we have 2 characters whose bodies are pointed outwards from one another. With this low camera angle, it creates a sensation of this low camera pan that catches them in the middle of this very intense action. There's smoke and environmental details that really places in the middle of this chaotic battle, and you can practically taste the gunpowder that's in the air.
And what about the mechanics of free running, Corey? How did you kind of synthesize that and put that into a game system like Magic?
Yeah, so when we're doing a Universes Beyond set that's based off of a game franchise, the gameplay is so important to us. What are you actually doing in the games? What are the actions going on? I mean, you could read all of the narrative content of Assassin's Creed, and maybe you don't fully understand how much the free running, the parkour, and the stealth, and the action and movement is core to the series. So we knew that our pivotal action moments in this set wanted to be all of these game actions you're making with eagle vision or just like climbing on walls, jumping over rooftops, climbing up towers. And we wanted a mechanic that represented that, something that could have a through line through all these action moments. So free running is a mechanic, right? It's an alternate cost mechanic. It's cheaper if you connect in with an assassin or commander this turn. We wanted to kind of borrow a little bit from Prowl or some of like the rogues and what ninjas care about in Magic the Gathering, who feel a little analogous to assassins. They care about getting in and being evasive and stuff like that. And as we play tested further, we thought it would be a great idea to expand from assassins, which is a relatively small subset in all of Magic, over to commander, where commander is a format where your commander itself is kind of like your main character. And so we wanted to reward your main character also doing these kind of acrobatic movements as well.
Cool. So next in our booster pack is Arno Dorian. I guess the clue is in the name. Assassins, of course, are a big deal. They'll show up as legendary creatures. How could they not? What's going on here, Stephanie?
Oh, yeah. So the assassins are the star of this set, right? One of the things we really wanted to emphasize is the power of these main characters as masters of their craft, which is murder. These are like ballet killers captured at the peak of their mastery. We have a mix of heroic staging as well as high-intensity action. In this Ezio piece, you can also see him just like in the middle of the spiraling pose on the rooftop, just about to engage in the next battle kill. And in Chain Assassination, we can also see Jacob mid-battle. The framing is up close and personal, and our eyes move from the foreground to the background, adding to the impact of this chain kill as he like nails this shot to this Templar in the background. Like he's not even looking. How awesome is that?
Yeah. Do you have favorite assassins now that they're printed on Magic cards, Lauren? Do you have a favorite?
I'm a little biased. I cosplayed Evie, so she's definitely my favorite.
Good.
Yeah, my favorite is Edward Kenway. I just really like pirates.
Good.
My favorite is Cassandra, because Odyssey brought me back to the franchise, and I just love giant women.
I know.
I picked the Royal Assassin because I couldn't pick like any of the name assassin from our game. It would be asking me to pick a kid. So I went back to my favorite old school.
See, Amar's been playing Magic a while. I mean, a really long
Started
time.
at Arabian Nights and Legend. So
Beautiful. This is the bread and butter assassin from early Magic. So, cool. So, we spoke about murder. We could go to the next card in our booster pack, which is Bleeding Effect. Corey, what are we looking at with Bleeding Effect?
Yeah, so Assassin's Creed is such a unique universe. It's not just being an assassin. That's like level 1 of immersion. It's being an assassin through different historical periods. That's level 2. But also, it's being an assassin through multiple periods, but you're actually a person from the modern day era who's part of an assassin organization, who's reliving the memories of an assassin. But also, by the way, there's an ancient civilization and a subplot through many of the titles. And so Bleeding Effect is a representation of some of the mechanics that happen in that modern day era, and shows off the little touch of the greater narrative in Assassin's Creed that we wanted to display in this set because it's so unique to the universe itself.
Yeah.
You say it like it's complicated.
It's pretty easy to understand, Lauren. Just read the wiki.
It's definitely super easy. Definitely one of the things we wanted to represent in the game is the breadth of games. There are 13-ish core titles and then a handful of kind of other games that are separate from it. And one of my goals as the narrative designer was to make sure that each game is showing up on at least 2 cards. Obviously, they're not evenly spread out because we wanted to sort of bring in the games that people were more familiar with or had played more recently, but really wanted to hit that depth across the huge variety.
Yeah, there's 13 games. Like Corey mentioned, there's layers to the narrative. You have to juggle the past, the present, the future. Visually, how do you juggle 13 different settings, 13 different games and narratives? Like, how did you take that challenge on?
Oh yeah, so we were actually very fortunate that the main titles in Assassin's Creed series were within the world of like heightened realism, which made it very natural to incorporate that into Magic's own stylized realism, which really lets the artist's style shine through heightened color, lighting, as well as like stylized details. One of the things that Lauren made sure to do was to actually include Arbaz and Xiao Zhen from the Chronicles series. And these characters originally were shown in a more side-scrolling act platformer style game, and so we got to like represent them in a more realistic style, while still letting like the artists like set the stylizing, like to kind of reference where they also came from.
Yeah. And Lauren, you talked about the parallels between the games. When you take on a violent video game like Assassin's Creed, are there some things you definitely wanted to leave on the video game side before you moved it to Magic?
Yeah, we obviously have sort of Magic's standards of what we do and do not show on cards, and so we wanted to still align to that. And a lot of it was choices that we would make of showing like our kill moments kind of in the moment before or the moment after, and working with Stephanie as the art director to really kind of make sure we're paying due diligence to how we showcase that violence.
So if we continue on to our next card, this is Become Anonymous. Corey, I'm coming back to you. What's happening mechanically with Become Anonymous?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to take this space here to talk a little about some of the returning mechanics of this set. Become Anonymous really takes advantage of the cloak mechanic, which is a more for manifest variant that we borrowed from Mirza at Karlov Manor. That set was in development at the same time as this set, and we thought it was really flavorful to bring in assassins as like face-down creatures, another expression of being really stealthy, which is kind of interesting. Like the word morph didn't quite fit, but when we're using disguise, we're using cloak, it's like, come on, it's exactly what they're doing. So Become Anonymous was a really creative take on that. We're also bringing back, I mean, we can see a few other cards here, we're bringing back the historic mechanic. So historic, hey, this is a universe about history, right? It's about all these historical stuff, all these historical eras, and being a Universes Beyond set, it's gonna have a ton of legendary creatures. Being an Assassin's Creed set, it's gonna have a ton of artifacts with all of the weapons and the tools that you use throughout the games. And we also wanna tell stories, so we have a few sagas as well. So all of the historic types in that batching really felt at home here, and so it was really cool to be able to use the perfect word that had almost the perfect synergy with what was going on here. Moving on here, we also are showing off Bayek of Siwa is a great example of a card that kind of marries the idea of historic plus disguise. You know, a lot of our blue or black assassins get to have a lot of these evasive effects, but when we move to the red and white part of the color pie, we're a little bit more interested in expressing your stealthiness or your hiddenness in other ways, and disguise is a great way for us to do that. We're also using, you know, the cloak stuff in different ways. We have Aveline de Grand Prix, I think that's how you pronounce it, as a kind of an interesting, you know, as a saboteur trigger. She's a green assassin. Sorry, can we get the next slide?
Yeah.
And then we have Roshan as well, that kind of plays in that morph space as well, and kind of make sure that your cloaked assassins are still assassins, so you can get your free running off as well.
So, yeah, it makes sense. Morph, cloak, disguise. We want to stay hidden. Hidden information is nice and clean. As a quick aside, don't reveal your hand, or never reveal your hand was like the best tagline that Magic has ever come up with.
Very good.
A little bit of that hidden thing there too. I saw that, lost my mind. Okay. Again, never reveal your hand. Why? Because we're assassinating, and murder is going to become a central mechanic. Why not just go back to the regular card? Why did you choose to highlight Moira?
It's a very thematic title.
Yeah.
It's the main one, but one of the things I worked with Corey and our product architect, Zakil, to select a lot of our reprints, and the sort of focus of a lot of our reprints was what I would refer to as Magic's kill effects. And murder it's in the name, it's very evocative, so it seemed like such an obvious one to call back to. We have a few other ones that I'm a fan of, but and we can kind of talk about those in a sec, but
Sure.
yeah, it was fun to be sort of picking across like the whole color pie.
Yeah, it's Assassin's Creed. There's a lot of assassinations happening, so we knew we wanted to show a lot of those assassinations happening, but it didn't really make sense for us to reinvent a bunch of kill spells, a bunch of removal spells. So among our reprints, we, brought a bunch of classic kill spells with Assassin's Creed art, so we can show it off creatively and still have a lot of cards that people want to slot in if they, want new art for their murder or Assassin's Trophy.
And I think my favorite part was looking specifically for ones where names really fit. So the next one is Fatal Push, which is, it's just like, it's a classic moment from the second game. You're literally pushing someone off a wall, and the name fits and the mechanic fits, and so it's just, for me, one of those moments that I really enjoyed. And then also showcasing I'd say the really emotional and very evocative moments within Assassin's Creed, where you finally kill your target, and sometimes you're so happy because they're dead now. One for me was on the next card, which is Terminate, which was finally getting to kill Caesar at the end of Origins. Sorry, spoilers if you didn't finish Origins. I hated him. I was so mad, and I was so happy when he died. And so showing that on the art was very satisfying.
Yeah, yeah. It feels good to kill your opponent's creatures in one game or the other, right? Yeah. Stephanie, kind of alluding to what Corey spoke about, where they were not interested in balancing colors. You could have a set of just basically black cards for this set. How did you balance that from the art director side and manage that kind of imbalance intrinsically?
Yeah, it was a very fun challenge, right? Because it's always important that our art supports our mechanics. Like, you usually see the evidence of the color pie in all of our art pieces, but the language of the color that's within our card art is more than just white, blue, black, red, and green. It would actually be very boring if we limited ourselves to those literal expressions of the color pie. So in many instances of our black aligned cards, we still see these reds and blues, purples, and still even green. There are splashes of color that will add layers to the composition without compromising the color identity. The art is made within context of the card mechanics, and color identity is supported through the literal colors, the mood, and sometimes it is just a vibe. Murder.
Just a vibe. I have a theory everything is just vibes.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay, so card number 6. There's been some discourse around how to pronounce this card, and my argument is, if you can say Asmerano Martica cool Dakar, I can give you this. It's way easier. Oh, thank you. Now, you're easy. I do this for a living.
Some rehearsal.
Help us out, Amar. How do you pronounce this character correctly?
Radanageddon is the way you pronounce it in Mohawk. And funny story, in the Mohawk tradition, you only give a name once. So we had to reach out to the Mohawk Council in order to have a game that would fit for a game, which we did, and hence Radanageddon is a unique name that exists only for the game.
Cool. So Radanageddon, can you say it one more time for them slowly?
Radanageddon.
Wonderful. Radanageddon.
Or Connor, that's a cheat code, that's the easy way.
Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, so, and you're playing Commander, so how does this kind of relate to your favorite format?
Well, yeah, in fact, Commander is literally the way I fall back in love with Magic the Gathering after a long span of not playing actively. And having cards that are featured, and we'll see more of that black, blue, or fits in Commander, was like absolutely perfect for me. I didn't requested it, like I hoped for it. I requested the Royal Assassin, and I hoped for a card that would work and have a lot of black-blue mechanics and other cards. And it was just a joy to see so many fits, and I saw online many of you already coming up with theory crafting and cool decks, so I was taking notes, and I think I'm ready now.
How many decks do you have, Amar?
Oh, probably like a dozen, like Commander deck, because it's kind of it has become like a tabletop game for me. Like friends are coming at home, they're borrowing deck, and I'm playing with them, or I bring in my own deck in order to torture people.
And you led some of the Commander precons in the past, correct?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my years at Magic, I've been working on Commander. I've led maybe over 30 individual precons over 11 years, so I've worked on a lot of Commander cards, and it's a format I really love dearly. So I was excited to really, take a lot of the legends and try to build really interesting commanders. Which is what we have here with Radanageddon, is like a Esper equipment graveyardy commander, which is cool to me.
So different. I love it.
And you don't necessarily have to attack to gain value, right? Like, does that fit in this space?
I mean, this card you do have to attack to
Oh,
gain
you do?
value.
Okay.
But he has a really interesting thing. He has a evasion and protection if he hasn't connected yet. And if you look at all the free running cards too, we're really interested in motivating attacks and getting commanders into the red zone. Sometimes commander can be a little slow, and a lot of the free running card space is like, hey, what if we incentivize you to get in, to interact? And so that's kind of what we're going for, is commanders that like to attack. With this card here, the next card, Viewpoint Synchronization, it's a really good example of a green ramp spell that has free running. So it's a pretty cool option if you have a commander that likes to attack or likes to be evasion. It's a great reward for the commander format.
And this offers some story moments for you, right, Lawrence?
Yeah, one of the parts, so the free running mechanic, a lot of those cards we didn't focus on specific moments. They were more things that you do within the game because they're kind of common actions in Assassin's Creed, but some of the story moments we really wanted to give their own moment, their own card. So this next one, which is What Must Be Done, was one of my favorites to depict. This was the point at the end of AC3 where you're literally deciding, do I save the world, do I sacrifice myself as Desmond? And really just working kind of closely with everybody to make this card as narratively resonant as possible.
And it's got great versatility for Commander, being a board wipe and a reanimation.
It can do
spell.
so many things. I also love this art in particular.
Yeah, Sid Mills was like, I'm such a fan of their work, and so it was like a dream for me to work with them on the set, and like they just knocked it out of the park with all the gods and emotional scenes in Assassin's Creed.
So what about Alexios, Corey?
Oh, Alexios.
Yeah.
I mean, Alexios is like this red creature that we think is just, adds a lot of multiplayer combat to the game. And he just attacks randomly, or he moves around. He doesn't attack you. He always attacks. I just kind of like that kind of chaotic gameplay in Commander in general. So I was really excited. Like, hey, it's Alexios. Let's make him be all attacky.
We wanted to get the playable characters in the game, and Odyssey's an interesting one because you can play as Alexios or as Cassandra. So we went with the version where you're playing as Cassandra, but Alexios is both your brother, who you're trying to save, and also this being controlled by the cult, and so he's attacking you, but sometimes he supports you depending on the choices you make. And so I really like how the mechanics capture his narrative in the game.
This offers a look at the games within the game, right, Amar?
Yeah, there's kind of an inception where if you go for the canonical route, you're basically playing as Cassandra, and she is the main character and the protagonist, and therefore, like your siblings, suddenly become the daimyos, like the incarnation of your nemesis, and that's how we featured it in the card game. We choose to go with the canonical version.
Wow, super cool. Similar to Lord of the Rings, which obviously has had an impact on modern, this is a modern legal set. So what are the cards that kind of speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, so again, this set has a big focus on Commander and Modern in a sense. We were designing this set as Modern's as MH3 is also being designed. It's kind of hard to predict the landscape in that sense. But we have 3 cards here that we think, hey, we think these cards have potential to see play. Right here, yeah, Tax Collector, Ballad of the Black Flag, and Ezio. These cards we were thinking a little bit about, some different modern decks, and I think it could be a really fun challenge to, try to see these into play, see what they can do, how can you push these in a very powerful format like Modern.
Totally. Okay, so our penultimate is a card near and dear to my heart as an Italian man and someone interested in the history of Italy. This is Leonardo da Vinci, the historical figure. This is one of those beautiful crossover moments where we could create a legendary creature in Magic, but he also existed. So how do you balance that, Amar, when you have to balance a historical figure with basically a character in a video game?
Well, that part is also what makes Assassin's Creed Assassin's Creed. Like, it's literally like the motto of our team is make history of our playground. So we try to have fun and use like historical characters, historical events, and Zone of Grey in order to craft amazing story about secret society. And having to deal with historical character is complicated for everyone because they existed. So you know that you're going to hurt some people, you know that some people are going to be excited, and you just have to embrace like a narrative vision and roll with it and have fun. People want to encounter these characters, they want to interact with them, they want to be able to play in that world and to leave a trace, to be part of the people who make history. So that's the way we have been approaching it, like on AC for years, and I think it kind of helps to set the tone to whatever you guys could do with that, because I know that it's kind of a puzzle that we're throwing at you and deal with it. So
yeah, very much so. One of the choices that we made as I say we as the narrative team, I made this choice. I say we collectively, the royal we, is to really focus on the version of these characters within the Assassin's Creed games, knowing that you all had done your due diligence in how you wanted to depict them, and focusing on that representation, because I have never met them, so I do not know do not know them and cannot show them as they were, but we can show what we know and have inferred about them over time. And the other piece for me was really thinking about characters that are more supportive figures across the games rather than your antagonists, as a lot of the time the antagonists are very fraught characters within real-world history, and the supportive characters are a little less fraught within real-world history.
So you really wanted to bring out characters that we could aspire to, maybe inspirational.
Yeah, someone you'd be excited to run as your commander, and everyone else would be excited for you to have at that table with you.
And with cards like Mary Read and Anne Bonny, for example, we knew that with the historical characters we were doing, representation was really important to us. And to have like 2 women pirates as historical figures to show off here, we thought showing more women throughout history, powerful women in different eras, was really important to kind of our core goal here.
I'm also a fan of Lady Pirates, so.
Yeah, why not? I think, Amar, you and I have something similar where games like Assassin's Creed went backwards. Like we became more interested in world history by playing and experiencing those worlds. Do you have an experience like that behind those games?
Tons of them. In fact, like the funny things, and one of the best things when we're dealing with Assassin's Creed in general, is the feedback of having people telling us that they basically get into history or major in history thanks to Assassin's Creed, but usually it gives you kind of the sparks that puts you on the road of learning more. And one of the things that was always fascinating for us when developing the game was that people were more excited about knowing the time period than knowing the characters we're portraying. It's like, okay, when is the next Assassin's Creed happening? And whenever they do know, they just jump on Wikipedia and we see a peak in consumption in the pages of like that specific time period because they want to know everything. And we're sharing like, historian notes or references, people we're working with, because we're obviously surrounded by historians, and we're getting sure that whenever we pick something or we do a decision, it's because we know exactly what we want to do and what we want to achieve.
Every high school history teacher in the world thanks you for this.
That's why we created like the discovery mode. It thanks to the feedback of a lot of teachers that were like, I want to show and use Assassin's Creed in my lessons, but there's gameplay and history can be violent and you're stabbing people in the face. So is there a way we can remove that? And we created the discovery mode where you're basically roaming around and learning stuff. And it's literally because historian teacher sent the feedback that the team worked on it.
And Stephanie, it must be wonderful to work with a team that does their due diligence, Like, what was that like to get, let's say, the files or the concept art behind the scenes from the team that has really done their research?
Yeah, honestly, like Ubisoft, it's such incredible research, and there's like this love and attention to detail in their games. So there wasn't even much of a need for us to redesign or redevelop any of the historical details we used in the set. And one of the strengths of working within the stylized realism is the opportunity for our artists to also show off their style and artistic points of view. Talking about history and like Leonardo da Vinci, like artists also love their history. Like we're deeply like tied to where our art comes from, and their hand really like elevates the historical fiction of the set, and fantastical lens pairs really well with historical fiction, which is core to the games as well.
Yeah.
This is one of the things we leaned into on the Saga cards is the historical art styles too, and that was definitely part of that decision.
And I know that part of it could be a nightmare because there's a lot of architectural elements that are protected. So you have to deal with legal and know what you can do and what you cannot. But we've done our homework. So we had the whole list of this is what is okay to do, which makes like the work easier, I hope.
Allowed us to like jump right into the fun.
And Corey, did you know for sure, just kind of looking at Leo again, we don't have to go back to the card, but historical accuracy and the play, this interplay of bending history, but also turning it into a game mechanic in a clever way. Where did the Thopters come into play? Was that right away?
Yeah, I mean, with Leo and all these historical characters, it's all about, like, what is the top line? What do people know? What is specific here that we can bring into Magic? Or, what is a signifier that's here? For Leonardo da Vinci's card specifically, he's a tinkerer in the games, and, he has all these designs, obviously, he's famous for. But what really tickled us is the idea of, like, making a reference to Ornithopter as, like, he's got the flying machine sketches that kind of look like, some of the Ornithopter arts of the past. So, when he makes the artifact tokens, the O2s, like, they're ornithopters, and he buffs thopters. So, it's kind of that idea of showing that, we know who this character is, we have a passion for who this character is, and we're trying to build something that's specific, that's very resonant towards what we think people know and recognize and will enjoy from this character.
I think there's also an element of us finding the places where we've all pulled from similar cultural references. Like, ornithopters are obviously like beings, and so we're inspired by the same things, and then we kind of reference them together in this like beautiful circle of magic and other worlds and universes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then in this game, Leo can finally create the Thopters.
He gets to make it.
So, yeah, we fully realized his dream. All right, our last card in our booster pack is Haystack. What's going on here?
I mean, it's Haystack. It's self-explanatory. This card, very early on when I'm testing all these booster packs, like, this was incredibly charming for so many people. If you know Assassin's Creed, you're jumping into haystacks. You're hiding in the haystacks. You're evading the guards through haystacks. And I really enjoy the idea of this really simple card that just has so much depth and resonance for people who are huge fans of this universe. And even then, it's really interesting when you get a really mundane concept that serves as a really potent set piece for this set. Again, when you open a booster pack, I want it to feel like you're in an Assassin's Creed game. And if there's a haystack laying around, you are in an Assassin's Creed game. It's like when we make Dungeons and Dragons sets, right? You roll a d20 because that's what D&D is. Well, here it's Assassin's Creed. You're jumping around. You're in the haystacks, and I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of this card. Every step of the way, this has been my favorite card.
Yeah.
Did this one even change at all? I feel like this was like the original mechanic you put on it.
No, this card was like this. I know, like, there was like some early vision exploration where they had something like this, and then we tweaked the numbers over here. It's just always been haystack, phase out a creature. You just hide the creature, they're gone, they're in the haystack, they'll come back later. It just really...
Also, if you untap it, it has limitless potential for the number of bodies that can hide in a haystack.
It's also quite
Not
good.
that I've used that.
There's a lot of decks that can play this to quite effect as a protection trick.
Stephanie, do you have a favorite card? And you can wax poetic if you'd like, as we have a little time. So from the set, what's your favorite card from the art director?
Definitely is a restart sequence on the choice. Like for me, I'm picking this from like the art perspective, and like this was one of the first pieces of art that we got in when we started this project, and it really sunk into me that moment of just like, oh my gosh, we're doing something really, really, really cool, right? This piece is also just a really beautiful adaptation of like magic art and the UI of this game. With a lot of magic art, we tend to avoid showing the backs of characters, which is hilariously kind of part of how it's like experiencing the game. You're like from this third perspective, perched on the shoulder of your assassin. So this was kind of like turning magic art a little bit on the side of its head, but also honoring the game of where it came from. And this was also a great moment with Ubisoft, because this doesn't really actually happen in the game. Like usually when you're loading in, like the inspiration of the concept for this card was to load in, and usually are walking through the animus. And so we decided, well, the action and Assassins, what if you're just like jumping straight in? What if you load in this moment right before an intense battle is happening, or you're jumping through the canopy? What if we could show that? And this was like a really beautiful moment where like Universes Beyond gets to explore the what if, but is still resonant to like the universe that we're exploring.
I'll say even on the game design side here, like showing what is effectively a video game mechanic, but could also be in world as an animus mechanic, was a really tricky space for us to toe the line. Like, is this restart sequence? Is this restart from checkpoints? How much are we willing to delve into what is, a very gamified UI concept into a magic card? How much are we willing to cross, like, the idea that this can be interpreted as, this is like a video game. Like, you put the coin in the machine and that's a magic card for some reason. But with the animus, I thought this was great.
Well, and it also speaks to the conceit of the game, where you are a game within a game. Mm-hmm. And that layer of, like, within Assassin's Creed, you don't die, you desynchronize, and you reload. And that was something that I think is important to reflect as a core of playing the game.
Mm. Do you have a favorite, Lauren?
This is also like picking my favorite child, but I love the sagas. I think one of my favorite ones is the Revelations of Ezio. So for the 5 sagas, we had one in every color, and this was basically me asking Corey really nicely, "Can I have some sagas?" And he's like, "Yes." And we brainstormed what we wanted all of the sagas to be very early on, and kind of which game we wanted to assign them to. So this one was the sort of classic, like this is going to be our assassin saga, but it's specifically telling the story of Ezio that you experience across the games, because Magic is not a linear game. It does make it a little difficult to tell linear stories, and sagas are one of our best vehicles for doing that. And so this is kind of going through his whole life, the death of his family, him becoming an assassin, and eventually him becoming old and tired and jaded in the future. And that's sort of everything that he experienced from him. And then we also wanted to lean into, like I mentioned before, the historical art style. So this one was concepted as being a Renaissance style painting, and I love how it turned out.
You get like all the dark, rich shadows as well as the yellow and the blues that pop out. A lot of it was like the style was also a great match for that moody story you wanted to tell as well.
Amar, got to hit you with the biggest question. You have to choose a favorite child now. Favorite card here.
From the card game. Like,
Yeah,
no,
from the card game, yeah.
So yeah, I picked Ezio, Blades of Fury. So reason is, well, there's multiple versions of Ezio as in the game. And that's one of the fascinating things I think about him and why people care and love him so much. Because when they're talking about him, they're like, he was in free games, we spent so much time, that's why we care. But if you look at the metrics and how people are playing nowadays, if you took AC Valhalla or Odyssey, they are spending more time in a single game with one character than what they did in 3 games by the time. But the thing is, with Ezio, you have multiple versions of the same character. You see Ezio young as a noble, brash Italian guy, and then he's maturing and becoming like the assassin we know, turning into a mentor, and ended up like really delusional about everything. And I love the critical way he's looking at things, like at the assassins and the Templar, and not seeing them as the good guy and the bad guy, but 2 different things that have like consequences. And I love how bitter he became. I love how every single one of us can think like, or can like resonate within part of Ezio. Like at any point of your life, you're going to be one of the version of Ezio. On top of that is black blue, which is absolutely perfect for my deck. I didn't ask for it, but turns out like that's my favorite card.
Wonderful. Not a zombie, but we
This
did.
was also the card I could get the classic "Nothing is true, everything permitted" line on, because the main version of him was very mechanically dense.
Nothing is true, everything is permitted. I have to say my favorite card from the set is Leonardo da Vinci, but the one written in Italiano, okay? Only the one scritto in Italiano, sorry. Grazie, sì, così. Well, actually, this is the very end of our panel. We do have about 10 minutes for questions. If you do have questions, we will be handing a microphone out, I believe. We do have time for Q&A, so yes. I think they're working on that.
They're getting the mics.
Getting the mic. But for the moment, please give one round of applause for our wonderful panelists and hosts. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, we got a microphone. So if you have questions for the team, please raise your hand and we can grab you a microphone. One right here.
Hello. I have a question. Is it possible that we will see a card that is both assassins and ninjas that works together?
Ooh, and assassins and what, sorry?
And ninjas work together.
Oh, ninjas.
Yeah.
Sorry, what's the question?
Assassins and ninjas that work together. A card.
Yeah. Do we have a card that's Assassin Ninjas works with? No, we
do
don't.
not.
No, in general, a lot of the assassin gameplay borrows like inspiration from ninjas. And if you're playing maybe a ninja commander deck like Yuriko or any of the other ninja commanders, where evasion is a really big emphasis in your deck, then the free running cards might be really good for you. Like I expect Eagle Vision and Chain Assassination to be quite good in ninja-based commander decks because you're going to be connecting with your commander quite a lot. But assassins, rogues, ninjas.
I think the tricky part is as of yet, they have not had a game out that has taken place in
true.
Japan. So
Because we may
maybe.
come back with something.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, Shadows was a bit too late
No.
here.
No.
Okay, sure.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, which was like the decision to choose the historic characters appearing?
The decision to put the story.
About having Leonardo, Socrates, and not having, for example, Robespierre.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Why those in particular?
Some of it was numbers, so we had four. Four was kind of the number of characters that we wanted to include because we still wanted the major focus to be on assassins. And a lot of it for me was spreading it across games. So I didn't want to have multiple characters from the same game. And Leonardo da Vinci kind of basically said, all right, well, he's the one I'm going to have from all of the kind of earlier games. And wanting to sort of split from the older games and the newer games. And again, also focusing on people who are more supportive, who are your allies through the course of the game, as opposed to the enemies. The enemies are on the murder cards.
Yeah.
That's where you'll find them. They didn't get legendary cards. They got murdered.
Yeah, and early on it was a little, we didn't know for sure if we could do, or like what our policies around doing historical characters, but the seed that planted this is we knew we wanted to make Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
He's such a bright character, and so as we're choosing the characters, we really focused on who are the fun or really cool supporting characters, and again trying to get that like gender balance for representation throughout history. That was again a key for us.
There's also a little bit of like the mechanical diversity too, like a Sophocles. Socrates, wow. A Socrates card is going to play very differently than a pirate card, right? So making sure that we didn't just pick a bunch of people who felt the same and would end up with very similar cards.
Makes sense. Great question. Okay.
Is there any element from the Assassin's Creed game that you wanted to introduce as art or mechanic that had to be cut in the end?
I had a card, and this is more of a joke than anything, but early on I was like, I want to make a card that's called the Cafe Latte, because there's a point where Ezio, it applies, he names the Cafe Latte. So I had a card early that I wanted to
There
try
was a joke between us where it was just like the blasphemous act. Where we couldn't do it.
Yeah, I did debate having Ezio punching the Pope on a card for a little while.
For blasphemous act.
We did it in the game, so
Yeah,
the door
but the
was open.
mechanics didn't align, but it was
Quite
very
worked.
funny.
I think we hit a lot of the major moments. So I am a little more of a fan of the weird modern conspiracy elements than I think other Assassin's Creed players can be. So if I had my druthers, there probably would have been more of that in the game, and so it's probably for the best that I didn't include a lot of it.
Also, I think we also shied away a bit from some of the DLC that felt more like alternate universe with
Yeah.
kind of the DLC in AC3 and stuff like that. I think we shied away from some of that.
Yes.
We maybe could have worked in that space more if we had
Yeah.
space and attention.
Cool. Great. Yes.
You all always did you all of you play all the games, all the Assassin's Creed games?
Yeah.
I must admit, I have not played all of them. My focus, there was kind of a middle period where I have not actually played the whole of the game. So bless people on YouTube who have compiled and the Wikipedia. That was a lot of the catch up that I had to do as kind of working on this project. So I'm heavily invested in the earlier games and the later games, and sort of less in the Black Flag and Unity.
Yeah, for me, early growing up, again, I played some of the trilogy, but when I got assigned this role, I got 6 different titles to start playing and researching for. And what I realized quite quickly is, oh, hey, all of these Assassin's Creed games are really, really big games.
Yeah.
Really, really long, and we're kind of really interested in what are the main focus points of each thing. So unfortunately, I didn't get, I'm so sorry, Amar. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to complete all the titles. I kind of played, a day or a couple hours into each of these titles, trying to understand what is the core fun here, what do I think we need to represent here, and, a lot of that research, playing through the games and seeing the commonalities between these different titles, some of that is what made me feel like, hey, it's free running is so important. It's the stealth action that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
but it's a fun discussion that we usually have all the time when we're working with new partners. I remember vividly on the Assassin's Creed movie, we had people asking the actors, like, did you finish everything? And they're like, you know, man, we ask them to be good actors. We don't care if they know the game or don't know the game. We want them to understand the franchise, but we are here. We have like books, we have movies, we have cinematics. We run them through a lot of things. Some of them are playing, like you know, they're catching up and playing some of the games to get the feel and the experience. But we don't ask them to be an expert on something apart from their main job. So the reason why it's a collab was that we are the Assassin's Creed experts, and they are the Magic experts. And the idea was to get sure that they understand what's going on. And within Magic, I know that they picked people that worked on the set based on the fact that they already loved Assassin's Creed and understand the franchise. And then my job and the one from people at Ubisoft is getting sure that everything works like flawlessly.
Yeah, you're the final check. Okay, wonderful. I think that will do it for the questions. Maybe, yeah. That will do it for the questions. The last announcement is there is a wonderful photo op. We have an installation next to the merch booth. There's an Assassin's Creed installation, so if you'd like to go take a fun photo to be an assassin yourself, there is an installation there. But that is it for us. Thank you so much for attending. We hope you have an awesome con, and see you this weekend. Take care. Thank you.